Hey, good morning. Today's topic is release the blocks that hold you back. I wanted to say hello and welcome back to everybody. Welcome back to Living with Favor. I am Lisa Mosbey, your host. On Living with Favor, we talk about faith, abundance, vitality, overflow, and relationships. It's an acronym. And I discovered that many of these things have been consistent through the last 40 years of my life as an entrepreneur. So I started this podcast to be able to share um, expert guests with you and a little bit of advice every week on things that I've learned over so many years in business. For this week, to my pleasure and surprise, my next guest gifted me a session to discover blocks that may be holding me back. It was a wonderful, peaceful experience. And in fact, the words that used to describe that experience are grounded, peaceful, calm, patient, awareness, and gentle release. Now, does that sound like something everybody wants to experience? Reverend Michael Long is a Toronto-based light worker that facilitates energy healing. He is a kundalini yoga teacher, a spiritual counselor, and a life celebrant. He incorporates praying in tongues as a transmitter of the healing intentions of light and love during his Reiki sessions. Michael is a certified Reiki master who helps people heal and reconnects them to their divine nature. Michael, welcome. Michael is here to share insights into what may cause blocks, how we release them, and why we may want to gently let them go. So I'm going to invite you in here to share. This is such a unique field to be in. I don't know many people who do this kind of work. So my first question for you, sir, is how did you get involved in this? How did you choose a spiritual healer as a life path?
Well, first, thank you for all the kind words, Lisa. Um, yeah, well, basically, it was Dharma. When I was young, I used to be like a hardcore Roman Catholic, and there's a branch called the Charismatics, and they do the praying in tongues a lot, and there would be conferences where would be five or over 10,000 people sometimes praying in this. It's a babbling, but it's the intention behind the babbling, right? And so praying for themselves or loved ones, and I ended up being one people would line up for, and I would pray over them, and some of them would do falling back, and it's quite intense. And then I evolved, and then left the Catholic Church, but then I got back into spirituality years later, and then a friend, I was at a hippie festival actually, who he wanted to do some Reiki with me, and then I said, oh well, I used to do this, and then I offered, and he was like, oh my goodness, wow. And so then I started doing the practice again.
Beautiful. I love that you said hippie practice. It's like that's what kind of it's a bond that we share because my background is in herbalism and being barefoot in the grass outside is more ideal than under lights or in four walls for me. It's like that feels like a prison when you're inside a house or an office building. So we have that free spirit to just get out and be in nature and be one with everything that communes around us. So I love that we both have that hippie nature. I use the word gypsy because my mom's Czechoslovakian, and that's kind of we have that gypsy nature.
Nice.
Let's start with what is an energy block? And is it just energy blocks or is it life experience blocks? We use the word blocks, and I kind of want to define some of these words for folks before we dig a little bit deeper. So, what is a block or what is an energy block? And how can that impact our lives if it exists?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is we've been conditioned to forget that we're spirits, and everything is energy. So, and the energy blocks are just symbolic of where we store our memories, sensations in our bodies. So, often if say if somebody has an ulcer, or they often have issues of anger to deal with, and if their heart is hurting, there's usually symbolic of grief that's being hanging on to. So the blocks are just not giving ourselves the permission and the healthy expression of those emotions to have them flow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the idea is to try to move through it. So you bring it up and then let it go. So do you have to talk about it? Do you have just feel it? How does a person walk through that process to get to the other side of the blocks?
Well, I mean, the first step is acceptance, right? In any healing is, oh, hang on a second, this is the reality. This is where I am, and then acknowledging it, and then bringing whatever other issues need to come to awareness, so then you can look at it to have that healthy, to feel it, and then to have that healthy detachment from it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of what comes to mind. The word when I was describing the words, when I wrote down kind of words, the one of the words I used was awareness.
Yeah.
That I had an awareness. I think it's hard to have an acceptance until you have an awareness. You said acceptance and being aware of. And so oftentimes we're not even aware that these things exist, that we had a trauma or we had an experience, maybe even as a child, as for many, many years ago, maybe as a child, or could it have been something in utero? We had talked a little bit about my mom being pregnant with me and had a devastating loss of a family member and was experiencing extreme grief while she was pregnant with me. And I've always, my whole life, felt this underpinning of sorrow, sadness, and grief. It's like I can experience joy, but there's always that there has been in the past that underpinning of like deep-seated grief.
Yeah.
And so some of that stuff, this can even be ancestral, is my understanding.
For sure, for sure. I mean, it's been studied where people from the Holocaust, their ancestors, they feel that same trauma response. So that's why it's so important to do this work to clear the energetics that we inherited from our mom and father and past.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's an awareness. And then once we have the awareness, then we can, get into the acceptance and then start to experience and move through the feelings of that. What are some common signs? I mean, maybe there aren't any common signs. I don't know if that is even an appropriate word in this sense, but what are like common signs or signs that someone might be experiencing energy blocks? What would someone be looking for? You'd use the expression of physical ailments, but are there other things too that might
Of course.
somebody recognize?
I mean, if we are just spirits, then everything is symbolic. So if you keep getting to accidents, well, maybe looking into the symbolism of those accidents, or you know, if I can't. That's the only thing I can think of at the moment. But if we're constantly, let's say, relationships, if you're constantly in a relationship, and then that fails, and then another one fails, it's time to look at what's going on behind the scenes. And I think everything boils back down to love. And it's looking at where we weren't given the love that we deserved, to love ourselves as much as we deserve.
Kind of off tangent a little bit, maybe it's not. We're seeing, I'm going to use the word epidemic. We're seeing an epidemic proportion of people who are struggling with, after COVID, people coming out and feeling, whether it's anxiety or depression or just like struggling with joy, finding the joy in their life, whether it's financially, with family, with work. They're just like, there's something kind of askew with some of those things. So I'm sure COVID would be some sort of a block for many, many people. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how would somebody, we are aware of it, we all went through it, but how would a person go, like, look at that experience and start to, kind of move through that block of that time so that they can find their joy again?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like the eagles, when there's a storm, they fly above it. So it's when we go within, and again start looking at ourselves and the issues that we need to address, um, then you can have that bird's eye view. There's the amygdala in the brain. That's our fight, flight, or freeze, and that's responsible for a lot of our old emotions feeling real. And when we go within, then we can allow ourselves to go past that and have a higher perspective. And we can do that with our collective issues too. And it's like, oh, look at, oh, hang on a second. And again, back down to being love. It's all about love, and realizing that life is not like happiness in itself is fleeting, and we would get bored if we were always happy. So life is about having to, how to cope with the ups and the downs. And when we do love ourselves the way we deserve, then it's easier to catch ourselves when we are feeling negative. Oh, hang on a second. Like, let's say my hand's hurting. Oh, what's the symbology behind that? Like, and then address it, and then readjust, come back to alignment. The idea of alignment is like the idea of sin was never that you're evil and going to burn in hell for an eternity. It's that you're missing the mark. That's the translation. And so we're missing the mark when we're not aligned with our true selves. And namaste.
Yeah.
Um, Sat in Kundalini Yoga, their version of Namaste is Sat Nam. Sat is truth or true. Nam is name or identity. And our true identity is a part of everything. We're swimming in the divine. If you believe in God, God is by definition omnipresent. So there's nowhere that God is not.
Right.
So it's honoring ourselves so much so that we can see and honor everyone that way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know we always come back to love, but love, it's like, how do I hold that in my hand? How do I understand that? But when people say they don't believe in God, and it's like, okay, but do you believe in love? Like to me, they're kind of this, it's the same. Like if you can believe in love and you can feel that within your system, within your brain, within your cells, within your energy, then you can too feel God. For me, like I'm not speaking that over anybody else, but they're kind of the same. But I can't explain love any more than I can explain God sometimes. So how do you use that? Your foundation is love, but how do you use that principle in your approach to spiritual healing with individuals, to help them to release blocks, to come back into alignment, to become their true self again? Can you talk about some of the processes that somebody might experience as moving through this work?
Well, again, well, you've experienced it. It's bringing it up, bringing it to attention first, again, to
Yeah.
bring it to awareness,
Yeah.
and accepting it. So it's if there's anger, then to look
You
at
use
that.
questions is what I'm hearing. You use
Yeah,
questions,
yeah. And
conversation.
we can ask that. We can ask our own questions. Oh, hang on a second. Why am I angry? And then go back. Oh, hang on a second. There's some injustice, and it could be collective injustice, like the way the state of the world is, and then acknowledge it, and then feel that anger because it dissipates if you the more you look at it. It's like a child with a tantrum, a temper tantrum. They feel it and then they let it go. And so is acknowledging the feelings to allow them to have that healthy expression, and then we pass that, and then we could replace it with it's like playing Tai Chi, and then replace it with what we choose. So if it's sadness, honor the sadness, and then change it to, like, say, if it's a loss of somebody, the tears are beautiful. It's a healthy expression of love. So then we can transmute that the tears are more for ourselves, for our own egos, but we can transfer that, play Tai Chi with that energy and flip it to tears of gratitude.
Yeah.
And for having had those people in our lives. So then it's a joyous tears. Osho had a nice comment, the world needs more tears of joy. And we can transmute our sadness to joy.
Yeah.
And same thing with anger and grief and yeah.
Any
And
emotion that you're experiencing can be transmuted from something that's not increasing your energy, something that's decreasing your energy, to something that is increasing your energy.
exactly.
But
Even fears can, fears aren't necessarily a bad thing because it's a sign that we're venturing into the unknown.
yeah,
It's honoring the fears that hold us back, so then they can become fears that stimulate us and push us.
yeah. Can you think of any, without giving away names, is there a transformative experience that you witnessed, or maybe it's your own that you experienced where somebody overcame significant blocks and was able to move through and experience healing, and describe what that kind of looked like?
Well,
Like a case study?
myself, I used to be, at one point in time, I was, was full of hate and anger and self-loathing. I experienced anxiety, depression, and so the whole gamut of all the negative emotions. And I took my time. I did a lot of work in group therapy, and gratefully, I was introduced to Taoism, which is all about acceptance. And that was like training wheels to learning how to meditate. And by going within, I allowed myself to honor all those emotions, to transmute them myself,
Yeah.
and to become the living person that I am. And it's by looking at it. Alison Larson, she wrote a book called Soul Intuition, and it's recognizing, releasing, and replacing. And it's honoring our old emotions to give them that healthy expression, so we come back to neutrality, and then we can replace them with the positive intentions that we desire.
I would have never guessed that about you because I know you from this on this side. I never knew you on the other side. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pleasure.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
In your practice, do you incorporate any specific techniques or tools to assist with the release of energy blocks? You talked about speaking in tongues. What
Yeah.
are, yeah.
That's the most important thing. I find there's, the Reiki, there's words and symbols, and then praying in tongues. I use both as a tool to separate me from my ego because we're just playing with the energy that exists and with the person that I'm doing the energy work with.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also, in essence, it's sound healing. It's there's actually a scientific term called sonoluminescence. When bubbles are hit by sound underwater, there's
Uh-huh.
actually a burst of light, and
Oh,
we're mostly water, so it's
yeah.
plant molecules, the bubbles in our story, you know. And I like the analogy of honoring those emotions with the analogy of bubbles of love. So see it, feel it, and then release it with bubbles of love.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think music plays a part in that, sound healing. When you say that, I think of the bowls, the sound bowls. I've been to a couple of those sound bowl meditations.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's just so grounding. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what it does, but it's like it
Well,
just it envelops you, and it's like a big
it's
warm hug.
it's frequency. Everything that exists is frequency and vibration, and sound is and when you look at the scientifically, it's mathematics and geometry, and sound is basically sound geometry, and so we get to heal ourselves by embracing those frequencies that are healing.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
always hear it, but I do have 528 MHZ all over. Like I have it stuck on my computer monitor. I have it in my bathroom on the mirror. But that I believe that's the frequency of love. I mean, it's been up for so long.
Yes, it,
528 megahertz is the frequency of love. And so I even though I don't hear it, I see that all the time. I see that frequency number that because I have little post-its stuck up and taped every place. So
hmm.
that's pretty funny. And then we have favorite songs. I've heard that there are companies that put together CDs that have different frequencies, like frequencies for healing and frequencies for love and frequencies for relationships that you can play at night or frequencies for sleeping. So there's
Mhm.
different frequencies that people have studied and that cause reactions within the body, whether it's
For sure.
sleep to love. Um,
There was a study about the Gregorian chants because they go through those solfeggio.
yes,
Yeah, it's like the golden mean. How there's it's a fractal, so it's this plus this is that,
yeah,
and that music has that in that the mathematics in the sounds.
like a Fibonacci number.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's in the Gregorian chants. So that's why it's so healing.
One of my
Yeah,
favorite CDs I used to play all the time is Chant. It's called Chant, and have you heard of that one? I mean, it's been around forever and ever.
I'm not.
It was by the monks. It was all done. It's their chanting music.
Yeah.
And then I think they may have had some flutes or something that played along with it, but
Hmm.
incredibly grounding and
Hmm.
peaceful. You know, what role does our own mindset, our own intuition, intention, um, what is that how does that play those roles play in that process of healing? You're talking about using the mind to bring things up or maybe using our sensing, our intuition, our feeling to bring things up. But if we have blocks that aren't even allowing us to use our intentions, to be awareness, what are some things that, without our viewers actually meeting directly with you, are there some things that you can suggest or questions that you can share with folks that they can start asking themselves to have some awareness about what's happening and if there's blocks that they may need to move through?
One of the hermetic principles is that all is mind. So it's recognizing that our thoughts influence our feelings, which influences our behavior. So they're all part and parcel. So it's coming back to there's a beautiful expression from Taoism, and it's you trace back the manifestations to recognize the mother, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm literally creating these experiences. I
Yeah.
mean, science tells us nothing exists outside of consciousness. So we literally are the projector of the projections that we experience in our lives. So that's why it's so important to go back to thinking about what's going on in my life. What am I experiencing? To how to and then how does that make me feel? And then you can play with that awareness. Then you can play Tai Chi with it. And
Okay.
so important. It's so important because we all like to believe that we act consciously, but we're all like icebergs. So it's recognizing that we really operate more often than not out of our subconscious mind. So one of my prescriptions for play, I call it, is that we must chip away at the subconscious mind every day because we don't need to look very hard for the negative in the world. And when you clean your room, you have to vacuum, you have to clean it again. So for us, we really need to clean the mirror every day, and I call it dusting your mirror, or and you know it sounds maybe a little crude, but if you're healthy, you have to have a bowel movement every day. So why
Yeah.
not spiritual bowel movement every day? Look at your stuff and look at, oh, hang on a second, I was ego boosting or ego busting today. Like we're either speaking negatively or positively about ourselves or others, and that's generated from within, and it's bringing that to awareness. Oh, how often do I say I'm stressed? I'm stressed. Well, then you're literally confirming that
Speaking
that's
that over yourself. Yeah.
instead of saying, "Oh, hang on a second, what am I stressed about?" And then dealing with that to acknowledge it, to say, "Oh, hang on a second, I need to, ease back." But most importantly, is doing that chipping away, and that's done by giving yourself those positive affirmations before you go to sleep, because we have those hypnotic states in our brain when just before we go to sleep, and then upon awakening, we have those brain states where we can literally hypnotize ourselves. So it's consciously reprogramming our subconscious mind to our preferences, to, like, say, and the most important one, I believe, is because a lot of us feel invalidated, and so I love and validate myself, and I love myself fully and completely, and then even add whatever you choose, like, to have in your life, because we literally attract what we when the one of the things that hold us back is we cravings and aversions. We want, and we're afraid we're not going to get, and you
Yeah.
can't get anywhere like that. So when you let go of both, that is when you're in that flow to receive your intentions, and that's by chipping away the subconscious mind, by saying, "Oh, I'm confident," or "I'm so grateful that I have whatever you choose to desire in the future." You can put yourself in that present state ahead of time, and you're kind of conditioning your brain to accept that as the truth. You know?
Yeah, there are so many things that you said in there. That
Yeah,
creative visualization where you're visualizing that future, or do you write down a gratitude journal of the things that you have and you're grateful for, because you'll attract more of that into your life when you act in that way, when you do those processes.
yeah,
Speaking conscious language, what are we speaking over ourselves? Do you say I am and
yeah.
follow that? Supposedly in the Bible, it does say that I am, the most powerful two words in the world
So,
are I am.
yeah, be still and know that I am.
Yeah, I
If you,
am.
when we still ourselves, then you can honor the I am that we all are.
We all are. Yes. So
Yeah,
what do you put after I am? Is it I am happy, I am joyful, I am at peace, I am calm, or is it I am, and I'm gonna cancel and say
yeah,
stressed, annoyed, angry, overwhelmed. We know what those emotions are. We know the words that we speak over ourselves. How
yeah,
do we develop daily practices or daily habits that stop us in our tracks when those things start to occur? It's really reprogramming our mindset. It's
yeah,
reprogramming our behavior in a sense. And if we
yeah,
we can't always do that on our own, and that's kind of why we bring someone in to help us through that process.
yeah.
So, daily habits. Do you have a list of daily habits? Like, what kinds of things might be considered a daily habit?
The four most important ones are again, playing your dime dice game, dusting your mirror, and dumping your spiritual shit,
Yeah.
and then
And so
chipping
how would you do that? Do you do that through meditation, through prayer? Like, can you
meditation,
just
and yeah.
yoga?
So the chipping away the subconscious mind is one of the most important things. Daily affirmations and intentional setting. So even like the night before, like, I intend when I intend I'm going to wake up and do my practice. I'm less apt to hit the snooze button and and procrastinate. So it's setting the intentions the night before, and it's far better than sleeping with negative, ruminations.
Yeah.
So doing those affirmations before you go to bed, taking moments of gratitude during the day,
Mhm.
and then the highest contributor scientifically, the highest contributor to happiness is feelings of gratitude. So those moments of gratitude, and then dancing and laughing, because you can't help but feel grateful when you're dancing and laughing. I mean, the cosmic joke is we literally get what we ask for when we get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And that we've been given this beautiful gift. It's the odds of being born are 1 in 4 trillion apparently. And so it's laughing at how we've been given this amazing gift that we can experience this wonderful human experience, right?
Yeah. We did win the first race we were ever in, right? We got here. Like, we became life. We've been growing, we're living. We're all winners because we've arrived on the planet. And if it took, 1 in 4 trillion, you're pretty much, each one of us is pretty amazing. If that's the case. I don't know
Yeah,
if that number is true. I haven't looked that up, but
yeah.
wow, I had no idea it was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fun to kind of Google that. But yeah, you won the first race you were ever in. From there, it's peanuts, enjoy yourself. There's something both Michael and I are part of a group called the Morning Rush. And one of the things that the Morning Rush does on Fridays is we have a dance break. I think there might be two of them in the week now, but on Fridays at 3 o'clock, you could look this up, the Morning Rush dance break, Fridays at 3 o'clock. We turn music on. Everybody joins the Zoom call. You can have your screen on, or you don't have your screen on for about 5 or 6 songs. We just dance. We dance away the hecticness of the week. We dance our way into the weekend, and we call that somatic dance because it's healing. Heather Grutz is the gal that leads it, and it's this healing experience of moving your body, and you're just shaking out all of that energy, that stuck energy, that stagnation from sitting or from working or being hunched over on your computer or your phone. But you get up and you move your body, and it improves your posture, it gets your blood flowing. We're stimulating the everything that's happening within our bodies, and it's called somatic dance, where
Yeah.
it's medicinal and healing dance.
It's so important. Like animals, in the wild, when like if a gazelle or whatever
Yeah,
escapes a lion's attack, one of the first things it does is shake itself off.
yeah,
So it's shaking the energies that I'm gonna die. The fight, flight, or freeze energies is shaking it off. And so when dancing, then we can do that ourselves.
yeah. So
Yeah.
now we've talked a lot about the Reiki piece of it, the energy blocks. You have some other modalities that you're an expert in, the Kundalini yoga, doing some spiritual counseling folks, and what else? There was something else that was on your list there too. The
Uh,
Reiki practice, I guess.
yeah. The
Yeah,
Reiki, yeah. And the Reiki goes hand in hand with the praying in tongues for me. Yeah.
it does. Okay. And then how does yoga fit into that? All of these are different habits and practices that people can experience. For me, I wake up in the morning and every morning is prayer. I try not to miss. I use a daily prayer app. When my alarm goes off, it says time to pray, kind of like time to make the donuts, time to
You know,
pray.
the movie The Matrix?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yoga is like going into that dojo with with Morpheus. It's
Okay.
yeah, we're playing with energy. Like we're literally manifesting the idea that we have a body and that we're in a room talking on computers right now.
Yeah.
So it's remembering, and so yoga is bringing yourself back in, and it's also allowing yourself to do the somatic healing by movement,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's giving yourself the opportunity to go within, and with Kundalini yoga, there's some exercises that are. It's incredible how 3 minutes can seem like forever when you're doing Kundalini yoga. So it's allowing yourself to get tested and push yourself past some limitations because our limitations are self-imposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what comes to mind when I think of each of these practices that you work in, each of these fields, it's the calming and the grounding that comes to mind. I'm kind of like a balloon on a string, and I need someone to hold that balloon down because I'm always up here. I'm always very heady, and I need to get down into my feet. I need my feet to grow roots into the earth and just to get grounded. Because when I live in that frenetic energy, I don't do anything well. I'm like you're here, you're there, you just like there's no calm or grounding peace
Mhm.
when you're in that place. And so prayer gives me that, and gratitude journaling gives me that because I sit down and I have to think about my day and I focus on that, and then that brings me back into my body where I can be at peace and calm.
Yeah.
I think that's really what I would say is you're a specialist in creating peace and calm in our bodies.
There's a beautiful expression I heard one time, and it's praying is talking to God, meditating is listening. But when we still ourselves, then we can actually hear hear the intuition that is within us to oh, hang on, maybe I should be doing this, maybe and
Yeah.
our inner guides are always whispering to us, and they often yell when we we get sick or things fall apart, and it's like it's just a pile up.
But we often skip the listening part. Like there's clues, you knew the sickness was coming. You had a scratchy throat, or you knew the sickness was
Yeah,
coming. You were having aches or this or that, right? There's always clues, but we don't
yeah,
listen to them. We don't take action when we're at that symptom stage until it's like full blown, everything's out of
yeah.
control. Ah!
And you can't separate your body from spirit. So it's symbolic. It's telling us a sign. Like say somebody's developing arthritis. Well, hang on a second. Maybe you need to start changing your diet and making anti-inflammatory foods your priority, and then look at the symbology too. Like what led you to start doing that, like eating improperly or whatever. Um, yeah, I had a thought that just left. It's
Yeah, the book that comes to mind on that is Louise Hay, Heal Your Body. We've talked about that many times on this show, where there's typically a feeling or an emotion that is
yeah.
linked to something that you're experiencing in your body. What is that? Go back and discover what those feelings and emotions are. And she even gives affirmations in her book to start that process of
Mhm.
reprogramming the behavior in the mind to move into a more joyful, lightened space so that you can do the work.
Yeah.
Is there any advice? Do you have any advice for someone who might be feeling stuck in their life, but they're a little skeptical about energy healing?
Well, I mean, the idea is it's logical. It's science. Science tells us again. Science tells us that nothing exists outside of us without our consciousness. So again, that scientifically, we are projecting our experiences. So it's going back to hang on a second. What am I feeling and experiencing? And again, it's science that everything is energy.
Yeah,
So um, I just encourage bringing logic back into what we believe in. And it's
yeah,
logical to recognize that our thoughts affect our feelings, which affects our actions,
yeah.
and we can change all of them.
Yeah. So Google
Yeah,
the science behind energy healing, and there's probably some studies and things that people can learn about if they are skeptical of this. There may
yeah.
be ways to have a grasp or a better understanding. The second thing would be to experience it. Because if you haven't experienced it, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. I have not really experienced Reiki healing. There was a group Reiki healing session that I used to go to back when I lived in Nevada. There was somebody who facilitated that. And my sense of it was really just kind of peace. We were in a group sitting in a circle. There was this peace. There was a meditation around it. I found it to be really serene. And so that kind of opened up my thinking and let go, as you state, let go of kind of the stressors that were in the body. So that's what I remember. That was years ago, but I hadn't done a one-on-one session like we had done together. And so, if you are skeptical, I would encourage you. Michael's website is in the show notes here, and I'm going to let you actually tell people what your website is too. You can reach out and maybe connect with him and go, ask your questions one to one. If this is something that, from what we've described, if it's something you want to learn more about, I'm sure that he would love to share more information with you about that. And
Mhm.
then before we share your website, before we wrap this up totally, can you express or give us your opinion about like the importance of this? And then how do we avoid or prevent energy blocks? Is there something we could do in the moment when
Yeah.
we're experiencing something, like negative, like not positive, confrontation, trauma in the moment? Is there something we can do in that moment so that we don't take that block in and we live with it the rest of our lives?
So every moment is another moment for us to change our minds. And the most important thing is to remember that if what you believe in is not serving you and or others, why would you choose to believe that when you have the power to change your mind, even your subconscious mind, which can be a little stickier, but it can be reprogrammed as well.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
choose happy in this moment. You can choose sad. You can choose stress, but
Yeah.
you can choose. You
Yeah.
get to choose happy if that's what you want. My dad gave me a book 30 years ago. It said, happiness is a choice. And, we had it lingering. I may still even be back there on that bookcase. I don't know, but happiness is a choice. And our life is a choice. How we show up in our life, how we choose to see the world is a choice. If you want to be an optimist, choose to. If you want to be a pessimist, you're choosing it. I would encourage you to look at the light, look at the world in a little different way, get
Yeah.
into some gratitude, set some intentions for what it is that you want out of your life. Final thoughts, and then we'll wrap this baby up.
Well, there's a beautiful expression, Aditi Devo Bhava, and it's treat the unexpected guest as if God has arrived. And it goes for thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And choose to see everything as a gift. How can, let's say a car crash, you could choose to see it as a terrible, oh, this is terrible. Or all of a sudden, if you choose to make it a positive, there's stories out there where they've met, couples have met the love of their life in a car accident. So it's choosing to see everything as a gift and then flipping it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, everyone. How do people get in touch with you? What is your website?
It's simple, lightandlove.ca.
lightandlove.ca. Much easier to find than mine, which is Lisa Mosbey, Mosbey. Don't mix those two up. Lisa Mosbey or lisamosbey.com. So if you'd like to get in touch with either Michael or I, feel free to do so at our websites. I want to thank you all for joining us today. This was a fast, it was like, being in front of a fire hose. People do say that sometimes when they're in front of me, Michael. It's like being in front of a fire hose. You just keep asking those questions. But so thank you for keeping pace. I hope we didn't go too fast, folks. If we did, go back and re-listen to this. There were lots of nuggets in here that Michael has shared with his years of experience in this field of finding peace within our body, within our mind, and within our lives. So I encourage you, if you haven't taken steps to release those blocks yet, that maybe you think about it. Start moving in that direction. At least get curious to think about what life could look like on the other side of what's holding you back. And again, I hope to see you next week where we can share a little bit more advice with our expert guests. If you need any assistance with your business, if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, I'd be happy to take a look at your social media and help you find your voice and get that out into the world. Just go to, again, my website, lisamosbey.com, and we'll take care of that. And if you'd like to connect with Michael one more time, that is lightandlove.ca. All right, folks, come on back next week. See you then.
Thank you so much.